Cool. Welcome everybody to the React Bay Area / Remix Bay Area meetup. Tonight we're going to hear from Seb here, who's going to talk about a shopping cart with React 19. And then we're going to hear from Steve about custom media player components from Mux. Thank you all for being here. It's fun having in-person meetups again. And also thank you to Mux for hosting us. Round of applause. And actually, before I go any further, I wanted to shout out Andre back there. He's the one that's put all this together, and he's done a bunch of effort, even these slides, and and he just like reached the limit. I think it was like, Eric, just go talk. So none of the things I say are of my doing. Andre is the one that's done all the work. So Andre's brought us all here. So thank you, Andre. Anything I say wrong though is my fault. And then thank you, Sanity Knutz, where they are. Thank you for the pizza. I like pizza. Cool. And then lastly, before we jump into the talks, this is a QR code to join our Discord, All Things Web Discord. And we're going to be raffling off JetBrains licenses. So if you like IDEs and you like expensive ones, we can get you a free JetBrains license. We're just going to raffle these off maybe tonight or tomorrow morning, something like that. Look at folks that have joined the Discord and raffle those off. I think we have 2 licenses, and it's pick whatever of the 20, 30 JetBrains IDEs you want to use that license on. So thank you, JetBrains. Thank you, the All Things Web Discord as well. All right, without any further ado, Seb, tell us about shopping carts and React 19.
Exactly. Here we go. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Good to meet you. So I have the same slide, so I'm going to be quick. Thank you again, Mux and Andre, and also Knut for the pizza, right? So yeah, Eric did it. So that's fine. It's really cool to see you all, of course. I'm Sébastien. I'm CTO at Crystallize. It's an e-commerce company. We are backend as a service where we provide, everything you need to build your own e-commerce architecture. But I'm not really here to talk about this. We're going to talk about something close, though. It's how to build a cart using React 19. Actually, as you know, React 19 is not really out yet, but if you are using Next.js, you can get a pick of it. So we're going to focus on how to build a cart and how to optimize the cart using some cool tricks of React 19. Who's using Next.js in this room? Cool. And have you heard about use optimistic hook? 1, 2, 3, nice. Use action state. Okay, the same. Okay, have you used server actions already? Okay, we're going to do a little bit of all that stuff, and we're going to look why it's cool and what does it replace as well, right? So that's the end of the slide. So this is just a little bit of Crystallize, the company I'm working on. Again, backend as a service where you can do many things. And yeah, let's just jump into the code because that's it. I don't have any more slides. So we're going to switch to a little project that I built for you. So it's very simple. It's a shop, right? We have 4 products, and each product, they have many variants. So if we want to have a look at the backend here, it's really not this. Sorry about that. Viking stuff. So this is a UI where we put the product, right? So we have a product, variant, prices. It's very simple commerce stuff. I use this just to render this shop. So the shop is really simple. I don't even have a product page here because the focus of what I want to show you is how to build these little things on the right and to make it fast, to make it responsive. to give to your user and your future buyers, if you are building an e-commerce website, a sense of reactivity. And of course, you want to convert and get that money in your bank account. So the order is actually paid, right? So the cart is the first time. You know, there is a rate of abandonment on a cart. If it's slow, people are going to give up. So that's really important. So let's have a look at a very simple implementation of a cart. As you may know already, if you don't know those hooks that I mentioned before. So to render this page, I have a very simple app that you can see here. So it's using Next.js, right? It's not really important. We're going to focus on React 19. So what do we have here? We have the layout. The layout is very simple. It's a little what? Larger. Like this? Better? For sure. Let me know. You can interrupt me, right, if you have questions. We are here for 30 minutes to code together. So hopefully I won't have any bugs, but let's see. It's also interesting to debug together. So little app, an header, a footer, the mini cart, which is the component where I actually render what I have in the cart. We're going to come back to that. And that's the layout. Of course, I list the children here. The children are part of the page. This is Next.js. I can fetch stuff server side in here. We're going to talk about this later as well. I fetch the product and I render the product. Nothing crazy in here. And this is, again, not the focus. If you've done a React app before, you know that if I want to add to cart and somehow change the UI on this mini cart, I need to connect those two components together, right? And the way of doing this is to create a provider, a context. So this is what I've done so far. So I have wrapped my app to this cart provider context. And then in this cart provider context, this is where everything is happening. Use effect, I load the page, I fetch the cart. And when I click on the button, add to cart, we're actually pushing something to the server, to an API route with the item that I want in my cart. And then I wait. And when I get back the data, I set the cart, and then the loading's false. Easy peasy. That's good. And this is a, this is actually exposed into a hook that I've named use cart, right? So the use cases here are just, the communication with the server, add to cart, because obviously I have a server somewhere which is going to receive data, fetching the product and fetching the cart. But again, I will share that to you. It's not really important to what I want to demo here. So if I go back to the logic, so we all understand the logic, I display the product in here. I have the mini cart on the sidebar, and the mini cart is actually using the hook to get access to the cart and to get access to a state that is going to tell me if it's loading or not loading, right? So it's pretty standard. What else can I show you? It's probably the add to cart button, right? So add to cart button, also really standard. I'm going to use my hook, right, to get the add to cart function. And really weirdly, on submit, I need to prevent default from something and add to cart, which is going to actually, once again, do a fetch somewhere in my API route, right, to save the cart. So it's really standard. If you see the route, this is getting the cart. So the storage here, it's actually the cookie. Nice. I get the cart ID from the cookie, fetch the cart, return it. That's easy. And to add the cart, something similar. I get the SKU, I add it to my cart ID, and I return, right? Very standard. And if we look back in here, can I remove that? I'm going to clean my cookie because I just told you the cart ID is there. So I reload the page, cart is empty, we have the loader. If we look at the network, we can see what's going on. Is it big enough? Yeah. So first load, use effect, fetching the cart, displaying the cart, right? Pretty easy. what can go wrong, right? How do you break this? Maybe you've built something similar like that. It's easy to break. The UI is really suboptimal in here. I'm going to demo that for you. When I add something to the cart, also, so important part of this, I make it slow on purpose here to be sure that, you know, it's going to be slow so you can see when it's suboptimal. So when I add something to the cart, I have a little UI, it's loading, and then when something has been displayed, it's going to highlight it in red. And now let's be a little bit crazy and let's add many variants at the same time very quickly. So here I'm changing the variant, I'm adding stuff, and then wait, see what's going on. I have the UI, I don't have any loader anymore. And if I'm not wrong, something is going to pop up at some point if I click fast enough. Let's do it again. You can already see that it's not good, right? Because at some point here, see, no more loader and the UI is still going on. So the experience is really suboptimal. So how can we fix this? And now we're going to talk about React 19 actually. So the first thing that you can do to optimize this is to use something new that is called transition, right? So you can actually start a transition, and the transition will do something really nice for you. It's going to pack the change that you want to do in the UI in one operation. So if you have many set something, it's going to pack everything, batch everything, so it updates the UI only once. So let's have a look. And about the loader, it's pretty simple to understand what's wrong here. Basically, you know, I click once, I set the state loading equals true. Then I click another one, I have another fetch. I set it to true again. At some point, the first request is done, set loading to false, but the next one is still loading. So we have a problem, right? So let's play with the transition. So the first things I'm going to do, it's really big, but we're going to wrap every function by start transition, right? So start transition can take an async function. And I'm going to just make it simple for now. I'm going to wrap the fetch cart, and I'm also going to wrap the add to cart function. Here, I must tell you, there is a trick that we're going to remove. If you await something, you have to wrap again because it's a bug for now. It might have been fixed actually. I don't know, but you need to wrap it again. So you do that, and that's it. Let's see what's going on. So I reload the page. I can clean my cart once again. And we're going to do exactly the same and see what's going on. First load, cart is fetched from the first use effect, and I add something into the cart. I'm trying to be really quick without my mouse. And see, it seems like it's not working anymore, right? I don't see any loader. I'm going to wait, and at some point, poof, everything is happening. Nice. Transition has worked. The system waited to have everything to update the UI, but we lost the loading states, right? That's why there is a hook for this, which is called use transition. So it's exactly the same, but use transition is going to get you back the loading state and a function to actually start the transition, right? So use transition. And here, to make it fancy, I'm going to just name it start transition, so I don't have to change a lot of code. It doesn't take any parameter. And then I can start to remove code, which is what we're going to do most of this talk. So set loading, I don't need any loader anymore. I mean, I don't need any state. It's going to be returned by start transition. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So that's it. So now I can reload the page, and I could do, you can trust me, or we can do it again. But we didn't change anything, but already, see, you have the loader, so you know something is going on. I'm adding many variants, and then everything is going to be displayed at once, right? Pretty cool. So this is use transition. Nice. We can do a little bit better than that. If we look at the code here earlier in the add to cart function, we've seen that we do something kind of weird, and you may have heard about server action, right? And actually in React 19, everything that triggers transition is called an action. And you can actually have an action directly in your form. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to change that. And instead to doing on submit, like we do most of the time, we're going to turn this into an action. So it's a little bit weird if you are close to the platform, if you know how HTML is working and HTTP is working, because here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to rename this. We're going to change the code later, and I'm going to get rid of this and do action equals my function. It's kind of weird because usually in action, you have a URL, right, where you post. Here you change this. This could be a function. And we need to code that function, right? So let's go to the hook again, and we're going to code that function. Let's put it here. And to code that function, we're going to use another hook that I wanted to show you today. It's called the use action state, which is going to handle the form and start the transition for us. So from the form, we're going to get some data. We're going to get a function that we can call. So let's call it add to cart function. And then we're going to get a loading state as usual. And here we're going to do use action state, right? And action state, if you read the documentation, takes a function, right? With the first parameter would be the previous data that you would have had in your form. For us, we're not going to use it. And then because it's a function that we are addressing, we are putting into the action of the form, you receive nothing else than form data, which makes a lot of sense, right? You submit the form, you get form data. So this is the function. You need to provide the default value, which would be null in our case. And here we just need to code whatever we need to code. What do we want to do? We receive data. We actually want to do this, right? This is the code that we are replacing. So let's do it, but let's simplify it. Once again, we know that we are not going to need the transition because the use action state is actually going to trigger a transition. So I'm going to copy paste this. I'm going to actually get rid of this. And then we can start removing the transition because it's done automatically. And once you see this, you can actually see that we can remove other things as well, right? The data, we don't need the state anymore because we can return the data that are going to be passed in here, right? Return here. So let's do it. First, I need this function to be async that I will explain. And then I await the data. I don't even need anything else. I just need to return. And we are close to something here. Still, we need the input. If we had a look at this add to cart button here, if you spot this, actually, when we submit, we're also going to submit the information about the cart item input that we are trying to add to the cart. So in this guy, we have an SKU, a price, and stuff like that. We're going to use it later to be optimistic. The only thing that we need here is the SKU. So let's go back to that function. I just need to get this from the form. And here it's, thank you, GitHub Copilot, this. So I pass the input that I receive from the form, and I know it is a cart item input, right? Nothing crazy. I pass it to the server and of the things. Almost there. We need to export that function from the hook, so it could be used in the add to cart. Of course, I'm using TypeScript, so I have to make sure that this is valid. So I'm just changing it here, form data. That should be okay. Nice. Almost, right? Because as you can see, thank you, VS Code, this is not used and this is not used. It would be nice if it was used, right? First, let's go back to add to cart. Everything's fine in here. I have that function using use cart state, use action state. And when I'm going to submit, it's going to be called magically. And then, right, this function is going to be called. I need to pass the correct data to the provider, right? That's the last thing that we need to do before anything else. So here, the cart could be two things. The cart that is fetched on the load of the page, or it could be the cart that is a result of the submit, right? This one that I receive here. So here we're going to change this. So it could be either something coming from the form or the cart that I've loaded on page load. And the loading state is also kind of weird right now, for now, because it could be the loading of the transition, which is still used when I fetch the cart, when I load the page. So here, but we're going to remove that. It could be loading or is pending. That's it. Now we're going to reload the page. Is that clear so far? Right? Okay, let's go back. Let's clean the cart and let's see what's going on. So actually, we're not going to provide any new feature. We're just going to make it then better here. So here, nothing changed. Just everything is working as before, but it's much more simpler to read in the code, and it's using React 19 kind of things. Let's wait. Boom. Woohoo, tada. Thank you. Then let's continue. It's not finished. So now we're good. Can we do better? It's nice to actually play with the new framework and new function like that, but let's see if it could be valuable for our user, right? And there is something that you've heard is how to be optimistic. Actually, in here, when I add something to the cart, I know what I am adding to the cart. I could display something on the mini cart already. So the response for the user, the interactivity for the user would be much, much better. So this is what we can do. And this is what we're going to do. And we're going to try to do that without changing so much code. And to help you do that, there is also a new hook, which is called use optimistic. So let's use that. So let's create an optimistic optimistic cart, prefer this one. And I'm going to get a function, of course, to set, it's like any hooks, right? Usually you have the state and something, and function to actually mutate the state. Optimistic cart, set optimistic cart, and of course, this is not this. This is use optimistic. So when you do use optimistic, you need to provide the data. Okay, so in our situation, that could be this, right? So the data that I want to display optimistically, they can come from the form, if I added something from the form, or they could be the cart that I loaded when I loaded the page, right? So it could be this or this. And then we need to build the function. So we need actually to use this optimistic cart, which I'm going to pass to my provider. So what I'm going to display starting now is the optimistic cart. So I can do this. Then I'm going to do a function that is going to be called optimistic add to cart action. Okay. Optimistic add to cart action. And in here, I could do something very simple for now. It could be just to call the existing one, just to make sure that everything is working correctly. And then in the optimistic add to cart action, this is the one that I'm going to use in the add to cart, right? So I'm going to change this and I'm going to do that. And I think I made a mistake in here because I need this most likely. Yes. Oh, no, sorry. No. Why? Okay. That's it for now. So now I'm doing this. I reload. I am going to clean my cart. Look at the page. It's empty. And everything's going to work the same way, right? We didn't change anything. So most likely, okay, still working. Now we want to make it optimistic. So the cool part of this is we are going to, this is crazy. I don't know if it's correct, we'll see together. But we want to call the set optimistic cart to actually inject something into the cart, but it's not something that we get back from the server. This is something that is part of the form, right? So we know by advance what's going to be the name, what's going to be the price, what's going to be the image. We can display it directly. And when we're going to get the response from the server, this magic will actually replace the UI by what we get back from the server. But for now, we can just do something in advance. So let's do this. I think it's pretty close. So we get the cart, right? Thanks to this set optimistic, we need to fetch the input from the form, right? So this is cheat code. And then we need to add the item. This is quite, so actually I had a cheat code, but I don't need it, right? It seems completely valid. Yeah, so GitHub Copilot. Oh, almost. No, this is fine. Huh? So this is you get the cart, so you spread everything and you override just the item, and on the item you want to add another item. This is just to make sure we don't lose anything. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna remove this. So now what's changed? As soon as I click, I'm gonna see something. See, now it's working. So now you have a feeling that it's really fast, right? Even though you don't know if it's valid, because the server is gonna respond at some point and will update the UI. Okay? So this is usage of optimistic. Any question? Cool. Can we do better? Yeah.
What do you do when like eventual like server error on one of those happens?
You handle the error, and actually if the server doesn't, yeah, that's you have to manage, right? It's not going to change the UI for you if you have an error. So you can try catch the error and do whatever you want, right?
Like a standard pattern.
No, you can just update the UI and remove the fake item, right? Because you were optimistic, you had something, it's not working. So first the server, if you handle it correctly to the server, you should, let's say the stock is not there anymore. Maybe the server is going to return a version of the cart without that item because, I don't know, the stock is not available, right? You decide of that. But if you have a real error like a 500, you can catch it and change the data, right? And display an error message. Yeah.
It can't be 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. The most like, yeah, but yeah, error management. We can have a look at the error management later. I mean, still, yeah, we can have a look at that. It's not it. We can do better. We can do better because right now we are still in a weird mode where we do a lot of use effect, and we do also we have API routes. You've heard we have server action in React now. So what if we just get rid of this route, right? Actually, React can do that now. You can actually make that function, this one, the add to cart action. You could do that automatically without using a fetch, just using a server action. So this is what we're going to do now together. I still have time, right? We have time, right? Yeah. Okay. So new file, I'm going to do actions, and we're going to do add to cart action.server.ts, right? We're going to export an ASIC function that I can name, not like that, add to cart, let's make something different, add to cart server action. You're going to see why I do that. And this action, we're going to replace it. So this was the function of earlier. This is correct. And here, if you want to make it a server action, you actually have to do use server. And we're going to check together what does that do. Add to cart server action. This is a function. And what do we want to do here? Well, this is a real function that we want to implement. This is going to run server side. So to know what to do in this, we are actually going to check what does the patch function that I was using before here, right? So I'm just going to almost copy paste this and do that, right? So we need the storage. So I'm going to import that guy, which is the access to the cookie. We don't get anything from the request anymore because we get the form data. So we can do the usual, maybe Copilot, thank you. And the input in here, we want the SKU. So that would be input.sku. that I need to import, and that I don't need. That's it. And then this I need to import. And here, we still need to return the cart. And there is one more thing that we need to do. We need to tell to Next.js to update the UI, right? And if you've done some Next, you know there is a function to do that. Revalidate pass. It could be, you can make it fancier. I'm not a front-end developer, so I don't know. But yeah, we do that. It's gonna do this. It's gonna reload the UI. I mean, the page connected. Anyway, so you do this, and then we are just gonna replace. We're just gonna call that. So first we can get rid of that route. So no more fetch to that API route. We don't have to manage this anymore, which is kind of cool. And then we just need to replace everything in the hook. So we don't need this add to cart action in here. What we're going to tell to this use action state, we're going to say, okay, we have a function already. This is server action. So that's going to be add to cart server action. Of course, I have imported it, right? Oh, we can get rid of this guy. Cool. And that's pretty much it. So, and this is kind of magic. I don't have to change anything in here. If I go back now, and now we need to look a little bit in the network tab to understand what's going on. Because if we have a look at the add to cart function, I have a function add to cart, right? That I pass to my action here. This function is actually this guy, right? Optimistic add to cart action. Optimistic add to cart action is actually using a function back from use action state, which is initiated with a server action, right? Okay. And the magic is somehow when I'm going to click on that button, the JavaScript is going to call an endpoint that has been built on the fly by the framework, which is what is server actions. So let's have a look at that. This is the initial fetch, right? That we do to load the cart the first place. And now I'm going to add to cart. Boom. This, I didn't develop that. It's not me. I didn't do all that stuff. We didn't do that. We didn't manage anything in here. This is just the magic of React 19, actually the magic of the framework that is implementing server action for React 19. And an endpoint has been created, Next.js in this case, but that's going to work at some point with Remix, and maybe it's already working with Astro, I don't know. But yeah, the framework is going to handle that stuff. They have to comply. They have to respect the convention, the interface, whatever, to make this happen. But it's kind of cool, right? Because now I just get rid of the fetch, right? Can we do better? It would be nice to get rid of this API route as well, right? You know that the new stuff about React, it's server component, right? We are actually using the server component in this. At the very beginning, I told you that on the home page, I actually fetch the product from the API, right? And I do that in the component directly. And I don't have any use client with React 19, and here with Next.js, everything is React server component by default, unless you explicitly say that is asked to be shipped in the client by using use client. So this is already a server component. So now the question is, can we fetch the cart from here as well? So we don't need this use effect in the hook. And we can get the cart directly when we load the page, right? So we can definitely do that. How? Well, we're going to get the code that is doing this. We're going to go into the layout, and we're going to build that function. And here we probably want to do something fancy because maybe we don't have a cart ID at first. So we're going to do, if we have a cart ID, we actually fetch the carts. We need that function. And if we don't, we're going to build a fake version of the cart. GitHub Copilot is not fancy enough. I need to have a look at, I don't remember by heart everything I have here. I think it's just need to copy paste from the type. I need a fake cart. So it's a list of item, and what I want is price. Yeah, this is what I need. So if the cart is empty, I'm just going to get a total of 0 everywhere. This is cumbersome. See, GitHub Copilot could be better. It could be better. Currency, let's do euro, and discount, let's do no discount. So now what's happening? I fetch my cart server side, and I don't want to return it. I got it already, but I want to pass it to the provider, right? So I'm going to pass it to the provider. So my hook has access to it. I need to change the code of the provider. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to receive the cart as well as the children. And I need to type it because we like TypeScript. And duplicate modifier. So I receive the card from the provider. So I don't need that state anymore, right? So I can get rid of this. Even better, I don't need to fetch the card anymore. I can get rid of this. Then I can get rid of the fetch as well. Get rid of that. Then I don't need any transition anymore. I don't need any loading state anymore because now it's just the form that is going to provide the loading state. So that would be just pending, fetch card function not helping anymore, and I can just get rid of this as well. That's pretty much it. So now I have just turned this layout into something that should work. We have to have a bug, right? Makes sense. Let's have a look. Let's debug together a little bit. Only plain objects and built-in can be passed to client component. So what did I do? So let's have a look at the layout. This is a cart. This is a weighted. We pass this to the cart. Huh. No one. That's weird. It's supposed to work. Let's do this when it's not working. Just restart the server. You never know. It's probably stupid. This is something simple for sure. Let's oh, with it. So by the way, I can get rid of this, right? Because we don't use that function anymore. We don't even need that folder anymore. But here it's, what's this error? Can be passed to client component from server component. So this is something because card provider, this is a card. That makes sense. We receive the card. We pass the card. This is optimistic. We get, oh, wait, what? Okay, see, that was a restart. Okay, sorry about, yeah, this is odd. Okay, so that's working. But is it good though? Nobody complained too much about what I've just done, right? Do you think that in terms of performance, it's really cool to fetch the cart on load server side? If you care a little bit about performance, you know that it's really bad to do what I've just done, right? Because every time we load the page right now, we are actually fetching the cart server side, which is bad, right? You don't want that. That's going to kill your performance. So can we do better? Yes, we can do better. So you have many ways of managing this. Again, this talk is to show you those new things with React 19. You have different ways. The fetch that I just removed was not completely bad, actually. It was not that bad because we load the page, it's cached, HTTP cached or Next.js cached or whatever. And then the browser is actually loading the cart. It's not a bad pattern at all. I could have kept this. But I wanted to go a little bit further, show the server action. And actually, we can also do better. We can stream the cart. So we can leverage the fact that in React, and React 19, Next.js, you can do that with Remix as well, using defer. You can actually return to the front end a promise. So the page will load, but the promise will be executed afterwards. So you have the best of the two worlds. So I see the time, and it's a little bit of boilerplate. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to go, I'm still going to show you, but I'm going to cheat. I'm not going to code this with you live. So I'm going to go back to main. I'm going to get rid of this. Git checkout main, git plop, this is an alias, and I'm going to go, oh yeah, main actually, the last part. So for this, we're going to use suspense, obviously, and something called used. Let me show you, npm run dev. First, let's see how it looks. That's going to be exactly the same, but we are going to be back with a little loader here. Is it loading? I didn't see it. It was too fast. Let's make it slower. So let's have a look at the code. What changed? It's exactly the same code. The only change that we have, okay, I renamed that function. That's okay. One of them is not going to be used. I actually can get rid of this just to make it clear. Up, npm run dev. So what changed? In the layout, instead of fetching the cart completely, we are actually going to return a promise of a cart, right? And we're going to pass that promise to the provider. So this is exactly the same, but it's wrapped into a function, right? That I'm not going to call, right? So this is returning a promise. I'm not going to await it. And I pass it as a promise to the provider. So here, instead of a cart, it's a cart promise. And then the trick, I'm going to show you, some, what is around that after. Why do I do this? But first, let's have a look at this. Cart provider, cart promise. And here, this is the trick. This is use. This is not a hook. It's a function. And when you do that, you actually instruct the front end, and this is a client component, right? The provider, to wait for the promise client side. And that's it. Because here I get back a cart that has been awaited. It's like differ. It's really like differ. And that's pretty much it. Everything else, it's exactly the same code. Nothing else changed. So that's cool. And the last part of this is obviously to use suspense, because if you want to do that, using suspense, because this you have to wrap it in suspense. And here the fallback is it's just a UI to say, okay, if the promise is not resolved, I just want to display something. So I'm going to display, okay, your cart is loading. Okay, that's the only thing. That's why I've wrapped that into a suspense boundary. And let's see. So I'm going to make it slow, and then I'm done. Why did I do that? Let's do, I don't know. Okay. So now when I reload the page, see, your cart is loading, but the page has loaded, right? So we have the performance, it's loaded, but behind the scene, it's going to continue and load your own cart. That's it. Thank you. If you have questions now. Question? No? Cool. I think so. Let's see. It's a good question. Let's make it load. Oh yeah, but this is gonna, the add to cart will wait as well, the way I did it. No, let's change it. Use case, add to cart. So we're not gonna fake on the add to cart, but we're gonna fetch it, fake it on the load. Yeah. Oh, and we don't want to fake it on the load of the product. It was not, yeah, it was, okay. So let's do it. Let's see. So the question was, okay, if I reload, now it's going to take 12 seconds to do something. I should empty the cart. That's a good question. Didn't try that. Because usually you should also, build your e-commerce platform with a tool that is kind of fast, right? This is just to handle heavy traffic. By the way, you can use Crystallize for that. But yeah, let's see. Okay, so I reload. Should take. It's empty. So okay, let's add one more. But okay, what's going on? Let's wait for this to be down. Yeah, but no, it's going to wait for 12 seconds. Yeah, it's going to be insane. But what's going to happen? You're going to have a query sent to the server. The server is going to return. I think it's going to, okay. I think it's going to work. So it's loading. I'm going to do the pink backpack. I think it has to work. It has to be managed by the framework. Maybe it does not. It's interesting, yeah. That's why you need to handle this, and you cannot just build a shop and a cart in 30 minutes in a meetup, right? But yeah, you have to manage all the things. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Someone else has a question, I think. No? Thought? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will put that on GitHub somewhere. So. And now I switch the slide. Maybe we can wait 1 minute, but we're gonna welcome Steve on stage, who is going to talk about web component. So welcome, Steve. Stop sharing. Good. So, thanks. Thank you.
Put this. How do I put this? Thank you. Just like it. Yeah. It's right there. I believe since already we'll have to promote it to host. You can just share straight up. So it's sharing that. Okay, cool. Let's see if it holds up. Yeah. Good. Yep. Cool. Do I go? You started? Okay. Hi. Steve Heffernan, one of the, sorry, let me adjust this up a little bit. One of the co-founders here at Mux. Good to be chatting with you all today. Yeah, I guess my claim to fame though is years ago I created this video player, Video.js. Some of you may know it. If you don't know it, I think you've definitely used it at some point. It's on a crazy number of websites now, like something millions of websites. I'm pretty sure it's been used by billions of people, which just feels insane. And it's used like Amazon product videos that use Video.js. If you watch your own videos on Dropbox, that use Video.js. Local news stations around the world use it. It was on Instagram for a little bit, Twitter for a little bit, and even in the airplane headrests video players, like it's even used there. So if you've ever had like a terrible experience with a video player on a headrest, it's probably Video.js, honestly. So it's just crazy. It's crazy to see like the adoption that it's had. It's all free, open source. Never made a penny off of it. At least I know somebody may have, but I did not. Did not quite figure out how to monetize that as well as other projects. But yeah, so been working on that for a number of years, but I started that project back in 2010. I was digging around. I just kind of stumbled on, this is the original website. It's still up at that URL. I didn't realize it was still up on GitHub pages. Like we've moved on to a different host. It's still there. So it's funny to kind of look around it and see where it was at. This was 2010 when I started the project. What is that? You guys figure out what that is? Okay. Yeah, I know. Sorry. The 100% skinnable using CSS. Yeah, skinnable. Yeah. There's a lot in here. Look at that Chrome logo. That was I mean that's still Chromium, but that was like yeah. And there was no NPM, right? So you had to download it. And I was actually really of the CSS thing, I was pretty proud. All of the different skins that I'd created. I created like a Hulu one, a Vimeo one, and none of them used images or icons or anything like that because it was all complicated to load those in. So it all used the CSS like triangle hack to like create like the play button and everything. So it was like that was it. It was all CSS. It was dumb, but I was pretty proud about proud of it. But yeah, so I started building that. I guess the story there is I was going through Y Combinator at the time with my last startup, Zencoder, and we had rented a house in the middle of the Santa Cruz mountains. Like we were small road to a smaller road to a smaller road to get there, and surrounded by redwoods and wild turkeys and banana slugs, and just kind of like focus, get this thing done. But the thing I didn't realize going into that is my co-founders, I had two co-founders at the time, and they both had families with kids, and every weekend they would go home to their families and leave me in the middle of the woods just by myself, like with nothing to do and just hacking on things. And so one of those weekends, I just thought, okay, well, I'm here by myself. I'm just going to hack on HTML5 video, which was a very brand new concept at the time, less than 30% of browsers supported HTML5 video. It was all Flash, right? And it's one of the things where nobody ever thought Flash would ever be displaced because we'd figured out ads, we'd figured out adaptive streaming, we'd figured out video in Flash. And so here's this new browser-based thing that barely did anything, wasn't supported anywhere, and there was no real excitement around it. But I had previously built a video player or two in Flash. And the funny thing about Flash is there was never any default controls in Flash video. You had to build the controls from scratch. You had to learn how to do the logic around the play button, the scrubber, all of that stuff. And so I'd done that. I enjoyed that. And I was like, well, I've been using these web technologies for my whole life. Can I build a video player UI in HTML and CSS, and just and took a weekend to do that. And I started with a tutorial, just put that out there. Here's how you do this. And that got a little bit of traction. So I spun it into this library, put it out there, and I guess the rest is history. But I kind of bring that up because the thing I actually wanted for this library was for people to do interesting things with video with it, to build interesting skins on top of the video player, to build interesting new functionality on top of it. And so I was very intentional about the component structure of it and how you could extend it with CSS. And then literally 99.9% of uses of it just use the default drop-in player out of the box and don't do any kind of customization. And that's a little bit disappointing. I mean, I'm happy a lot of people are using it, but it's also it's a little bit disappointing because it didn't really I didn't see the creativity around it that I was hoping to see, the creativity that I wanted from it for myself as somebody who was excited about web technologies plus video, right? And I think in retrospect, the place that where that was a problem is that I had essentially created its own framework. It wasn't React was not around at the time, but I'd intentionally chosen not to build on jQuery. But even jQuery wasn't a UI framework. It was jQuery UI, but it was not jQuery, right? And it also wasn't HTML. It was a layer on top of HTML. And so I think with something with a video player where you're building a whole application, to then be asked to dig into a whole different framework and component structure and learn that to do something custom, I think is actually a big lift. And so people didn't take that step to get there. They just used the default, and they got video working. They were happy with it. And so, but I always kind of had that dream. So then comes web components, and this is the part of the talk where I've given a lot of talks on web components over the years, and I just started stealing slides for this talk from previous talks, and this is one from a Fifth Element themed talk. So you'll see other. This is a Frankenstein of slides. You'll see that. But so web components comes in. Funny thing is, web components was introduced around the same time as React, around like 2013. So I guess I could have made the choice to go all in on React and React components plus video, and that probably would have been the right choice. But I didn't do that. I was actually really excited about this concept of web components, which really didn't get to maturity for a number of years later. But for a quick primer, web components, custom elements, what it is in JavaScript, your ability to create custom HTML elements. So after you've registered them in the browser, you can then use them like HTML tags, like just like any other HTML tag. You can access them in JavaScript like other HTML tags, like using query selector, style them as easily in CSS. And so, like as somebody who's been working with web technologies for 30 years now, and there's like 100. I think there's exactly 100 HTML tags, which is not a lot of like UI components. And so like then to see this technology where you can now extend the browser and actually start to create things at that level of HTML tags was kind of mind blowing, and really exciting. And then I saw a talk at, I think it was like JSConf EU in like 2013, where one of the speakers there, Glenn Mattern, he was talking about web components, and he was demoing a project he built, which is still really cool. It's called X-GIF, X-GIF, and it just allows you to do crazy things like time music to your GIF, or like make your GIF go backwards and forwards, and like it's a supercharged like element for playing a GIF or GIF if you're Matt McClure and you say that. I mean, that was really cool to see. But the main thing he said is that like everything ultimately speaks HTML on the web. So like all of these web frameworks from jQuery to React and all of the future frameworks, like everything under the hood is speaking HTML. And so if you can extend the browser at that layer, then that functionality can bubble up through these other frameworks. And so like coming from a world of video players, which is essentially a widget that you're trying to get to work across a lot of different things, like that was a powerful concept that like, oh, I don't have to like wrestle with all these frameworks and build different integrations for each one of these frameworks individually and keep up with them over time. Like there's a potential world in the future where I just build a custom element and now it just works across these things. Like that was a really cool idea. And in the player world, we see this kind of split where on the left you have these general players that are trying to be everything to everyone. They're trying to work across all these different frameworks and be compatible. And that's great from one side, because you get a lot of users across these frameworks who contribute back, and you end up developing a lot more advanced features like accessibility and preview thumbnails and like advanced things that you want to see in a player. Compared to the more like framework specific side of things, where you're going to have a player that feels very idiomatic to the framework, to the language. It feels comfortable to work with in the project, but ultimately is going to be somewhat limited on contributors. I've yet to see any of these players really get into like very advanced features, and so there's a real trade-off between these two sides. And I guess what I saw with the web components is an opportunity to kind of like cut under this whole world and build something that like bridges the gap between those two things, where you can create something that like ultimately feels idiomatic for the frameworks side of things, but then you can create a decent contributor base and start to build a lot of advanced features that cut across all of these frameworks. So Kind of like frame that. Oh yeah, new set of slides here. This was a Doom themed set of slides. So like imagine building yeah, multiple UIs that you want to work across a single video player. Like I guess one example, I don't know where you'd have this, but like you have a React application and a Vue application, and you want to build a video player or a media component that you're going to put investment into, and you want to be able to swap those in between your front end UIs. Like web components starts to open up this possibility. A better example of this is like BBC uses web components and uses this. They have one whole like kids player UI, which is like very geared towards kids using the player, and then they have like the like advanced, I guess, UI for adults, and they essentially like are able to build an entire set of UI components like independently and then swap in the playback technology between the two. And those can be completely independent projects essentially, but completely compatible because of the way that they built it with web components and expecting the same API essentially. This goes the other way too, where let's say you invest a lot in like the style of your video player, and you want it to work across your YouTube embeds that your marketing team is like creating interesting collateral on your YouTube channel, and you want to embed that on your website, but you also want to use that same UI on top of just MP4s that you're hosting on S3 and delivering via JW Player or something like that. And like you want to use the same UI across those. This ecosystem where you're creating a standard HTML API for over top of these video players and then building a UI on top of that, like makes this possible essentially. Hopefully this is making sense. This is essentially the dream behind the project Mediachrome, which I started maybe 5 years ago now, and now we have a team of there's a bunch of us now working on this and have been working on this for years. So this one is a pretty decently mature product now. Open source, free to use, and it's kind of trying to get to that place where I was hoping to get to with Video.js, where it is like true, like real components that you're not having to learn a new framework to use and a new framework in order to build a custom player and do interesting things with it. You can just use HTML and CSS and JavaScript and be comfortable with that API, those types of components. So we've been building that. This is ultimately what the API then looks like. You have a media controller, which is essentially the logic, the state management of the player. You drop in some kind of media element. I just have the video element here, but we've also created a bunch of elements that expose the video element API, but wrap like the YouTube player, wrap the Wistia player, things like that. So then you can just drop those in the place of this video element. And then just start using things like the media play button, the time scrubber, the picture-in-picture button, things like that. You can just drop those into your project and start customizing it the same way you would any other HTML element. So this is ultimately, it's not a player. These are components to build your player, but it's also not like as daunting as all of the complexity that's actually built into video players, because there is a ton of complexity there that it is a lot of work once you start getting into things like accessibility and adaptive streaming and all of that. And these components aim to kind of abstract away all of that really like deep technical complexity, but allow you to be totally custom with the components that totally custom with the player that you're building and how you want it to look at the end of the day. But this is, of course, a React meetup, and so that was HTML, and like I'm still I'm interested like at the. We have lots of debates around like what's the right way to like expose these components in React and how much do we need to lean into React versus just lean into like the ubiquitousness of HTML. And I think at the end of the day, like React developers like to see things that look like React. And so like all I say, like we've leaned into creating React wrappers for this. But React is also kind of coming to the table too, in that React 19 has like way better support for web components today than they did in the past. There used to be a lot of challenges around just kind of how properties were passed through and translated down to the web components. There were some challenges around server-side generation. And all I'd say, like, a lot of that's being resolved. Maybe all of that is being resolved. And so it's an exciting world for web components as React kind of comes to the table on this. But also, I don't know if we ever get away from like creating wrappers, so you just feel like you're working with React components. So we do have those too, and that makes it easy to also customize a player using React components. Yeah, let's see where else was going with that. So even with that, like I don't expect anyone to just like understand the possibilities of what you can then do. I think even with Video.js, it's like, I don't know, you need more than just like the functionality. You need to be like inspired and see the possibilities. And so our latest project, we've been building Media Chrome for years now. Our latest project is kind of like, I feel like it's almost like the culmination of this whole effort, where we're building a site called player.style. We haven't launched this yet, aiming to launch it in the next few weeks, but it's essentially a themes website, which everybody's seen a themes website. But the goal being to kind of show off, first show off like everything that you can do with these components. In fact, I'm gonna just break out and go to the site itself here. Yeah, you guys can see that, right? Okay, so here's player.style. The site is built in React and Next.js, and so we've been kind of eating our own dog food and making sure that web components work in that world. But for example, like right now we're just actively building out as many themes as we can just to show off what we can do. So we have like an Instagram like player, if you're looking for something like that. We have one player that we had another designer just build up like design a really clean player, and then we put it together, added some nice animations around the icons, and just really like how that one turned out. But if you want like something that looks like the Vimeo player, something that looks like the YouTube player, these are nice because it's like really pushing us to test, can we build all the features that YouTube and Vimeo have? Can we make it look exactly the same? Can we do the complex animations that they have in some of the really nice touches of transitions and stuff? So this open source as well? Oh, this is open source. Yeah. On the Tailwind homepage, there's like an example audio player that I don't think is anywhere else on their site, but Wes on our team just decided to go build it. And so using Tailwind, he built the Tailwind audio player. And so that's a nice example of like, yeah, like if you want to use Tailwind, you can also use that here. We have a conference we call Demuxed that's the player from 2022. And then like we're starting to get into like more creative things. Like somebody built like the Winamp theme, right? It's so cool, right? So like there's a Nintendo theme that somebody built and we're pulling into here. I have one that looks like an Etch-a-Sketch, like so you can imagine like this, like I'm excited for like the weird side of these themes as much as just the like proving out that you can build whatever functionality that you want. But all I say, like the heart of this that like just is really cool. I'll do the Sutro theme. Is really this like simple UI here. Like it's not all that crazy, but like there's just like this is like the proof point of like everything that I just talked about. In that, okay, so we have the Sutro theme here, and let's say I want to put a YouTube video behind it, and my computer's zooming out, and I want to use that in React. Well, then like here's my embed code, right? Install these things, drop this into my React project. You guys see that? Is that too small? I think you get the point either way. Or if I want to switch to Svelte, right? Like here's the Svelte drop in, and plain HTML, plain JavaScript, Vue. Like we can take this further, but like that's the bulk of it, right? And or if I want to switch to the Vimeo, or use my own adaptive streaming, or a hosted video file somewhere, like it just like very simply just resets the embed code so that you can just drop this into any site for any media, right? And that's like the powerful, like it didn't take us a lot of work to do that. Like, because again, at the end of the day, we've built these web components that speak HTML, and this functionality is bubbling up. Like we did have to do some work. We had to, we built React wrappers for React because that still feels important today. But for like Svelte, like we didn't actually have to build any wrappers. Like it's Svelte is very, very compatible with web components. And this just like, I don't know. I'm like really excited about this UI specifically because like it shows the like the power of the concept behind all of this of web components and building in this way to unlock like this compatibility across the ecosystem. What happens if you customize the theme? Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah. So I'm gonna make a very ugly player here now. Why is this zooming out? Okay. So primary color, red. That one, whatever that is, right? So picking colors, and then like now you can see those like, ooh, that's we definitely want to put that on your website. This one we might have to do some work on. Yeah, and so like that. Oh man, I'm having trouble with zooming right now. So that's all done with CSS variables. If I drop in to one of these, I could go to Instaplay one. Today we're doing that with CSS variables. So if you have any experience, or CSS properties, like custom properties, right? If you're familiar at all with web components, the nice thing about CSS properties is that they can like bubble down into the shadow DOM, and so like we can use these things to like make it very easy to style not just these themes, but even when you're using Media Chrome itself and the individual components, set these things on a global level or set these things specific for an element, and get really custom. Like we don't have to, like all these components are wrappers around and kind of abstract away some of the complexity. We can also give lots of nice entry points to do really kind of infinite customization and not like limit what people are trying to do with it. So yeah, so get yourself a nice lime green and red video player. Yeah, I mean, I think this, I'm definitely not trying to promote like everybody should go out and build their apps on web components. I think this is a very like, I think this, at least for me, this stands out as an important thing for something like widgets, something like a video player, that you want longevity for that, you want compatibility for it. Like I think, despite the like lack of customization and with Video.js, despite the lack of customization and the like the difficulty of like learning the component ecosystem, I think one of the best things I did for that project was not build it on top of jQuery. And like jQuery was like the React of the time, right? Like I'm not saying that like React is going to go away anytime soon, but like it's probably going to go away at some point. And like for these like widgets that you want to be compatible, and if you want them to have any kind of longevity, like building a layer down, I think goes a long way. There were lots of other players that were built at the same time of Video.js, and they were built on top of jQuery, and like they're not around anymore. And so it's just like when it comes to widgets and things that you want to like go from project to project, I think it like it pays to think like a layer down and think and like web that can be web components, doesn't have to be web components, but that's certainly a nice technology to lean on for something like that. I won't bother sharing again, but Mediachrome is out there. It's been out there. It's super mature, so you should feel very comfortable using it if you're interested. It was used on Caffeine TV, RIP. They shut down a few months ago. But TED.com, TED Talks uses Mediachrome. A bunch of other websites have started using it. It's used in the Mux player, so all of the Mux customers are using Mediachrome under the hood. And then player.style, we're like active in development on it, planning to launch it in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye on Product Hunt and Hacker News. And if you see it come across your feed, give us an upvote. And if you have a player, if you have any kind of video on your site and you're up for like just helping us kick the tires on this and giving us feedback, just like don't hold back. Would love to know any friction points that you're running into on this project and anything we could do better. But yeah, we're excited about this and excited to get this out. So thank you. Questions? Yeah.
Curious about text, like lyric video kind of thing where you move text from. How you incorporate or like work with timed text, timed and position text.
Like, do you mean like captions in general or more specific? Like,
more like deluxe captions. I'm thinking, because I did something like this like 15 years ago with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS with a song that had lyrics, and I wanted it to like them to appear in places on the screen over a background, right? Which wasn't even video.
Yeah.
But the work was all in getting the timings of the fade ins and fade outs and positioning of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
It was a really brutal to do. A lot of hard work.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, there's honestly, I don't know. Like, I think this like Mediachrome would be a good framework for kind of like setting. So the question is around like time text and positioning of that text and like transitioning of that text. Like, I think Mediachrome would be a good like framework around that. And then I don't know like how much you need like Mediachrome specifically for that versus I mean, there's a decent API with WebVTT and the text tracks today on the video element. But then there's projects like I think it's Hyper Audio, which is getting into some of that like transcript editing, you know, where you can like edit a video by like selecting a piece of text and like moving that text somewhere else, and now your video is actually edited to like play in a different order because you moved the text. So yeah, like yeah, if you're interested, shoot me an email. I'll dig up some of those projects. But anyway, I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yes.
So this is more of a question about Mediachrome, but how do you essentially scan like interfacing with like, because it's usually in an iframe, interfacing like through the like formal channels with that iframe, where you kind of extract the actual stream and then re-render.
The one that we've built is actually using the YouTube iframe under the hood, like the blessed path. Yeah, and thankfully, like the iframe, actually, at least the YouTube iframe API is decently robust enough with the basic functionality, so that it's not breaking any, like it's not adding like asynchronous things where you don't want asynchronous things and anything like that. And building a web component around that iframe then kind of allows you to do like fill in the gaps a little bit where the iframe doesn't actually like support some of the more advanced APIs that you might want from the player, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think we won't try to get around that in one of the like non-blessed ways. Actually, there's a company in that 2010 Y Combinator batch who was basically doing like ads on top of YouTube, and like that was kind of their whole company, and then like YouTube just kind of shut them down. And so yeah, yeah, blessed path. Yeah. Is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Go to the back and in front. Yep.
I have a question about oh, this microphone. So my question is, there is the Mux player, and you said that this the Mux player uses this under the hood. So my question is, when will you use the Mux player directly versus using something using this instead?
Yeah. I think it's like it's an ease of use versus flexibility. So Mux Player versus Mediachrome. Mux Player is going to be like your easy drop in. It does a lot of the like configuration, because the Mux player only works with the Mux backend, which is an API and a server, whereas Mediachrome works with any backend. And so the Mux player takes that like tied togetherness to make some of the configuration super easy, and then just put a really nice looking skin on top of the player that supports all of the advanced features that you can do with the Mux backend automatically. Whereas then Mediachrome, you're gonna do like more work to create the player that you want, and especially once you start like wiring up some of the things like the preview thumbnails and things like that, it'll be a little bit more manual. But you can ultimately achieve the same thing as what the Mux player is doing. It's just going to take a little bit more work.
So is there more custom, you can customize more with Mediachrome versus just doing straight Mux player?
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe kind of going off that a little bit, how do you think of like the observability, the data? Like if you're rolling your own, you're not doing a YouTube embed or something, but you're doing full stack video. How do you think, what brought you, I guess, since Mux does a lot of that, what brought you to that as like a problem space?
Observability.
Observability, yeah.
So like our metrics, like rebuffering and things like that. So yeah. Yeah. So for context, Mux's first product actually is essentially video observability. So not like Google Analytics for video, but more like New Relic for video. It's like performance monitoring. It's called Mux Data, and Mux Data gets used on the Super Bowl and the World Cup, and monitors all those like streams, and helps the company streaming understand when users are seeing slow startup time, increased rebuffering, poor video quality, things like that. And also Cricket, like I don't know if anybody like. We monitor the Super Bowl, and the concurrent stats for that is somewhere around like 8 million people watching at one time on devices at least. Cricket hit like 80 million, and like I don't know. Sorry, it's a tangent, but like that just blew my mind. Like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of people. All I say, yeah. So we felt like that was an important place to start building products, because we saw that as a major pain point in the industry among like some of the major platforms who were building video. And like we got kind of insight into what like YouTube and Netflix have as far as being able to tell what's happening in their video players around the world. And really kind of like nobody else had that type of observability around video. So I think your question is around like is that compatible with this ecosystem then, or?
I guess I could maybe frame it a different way. Like what initially brought you to like, that's the thing that we really need, is that kind of data observability.
Oh, okay.
And then I guess a follow-up would be like, what are the current biggest challenges you face with systems like that?
With that observability?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah, so then all of that context, like that's kind of what drove us, like seeing that problem in the space, knowing that we wanted to build more products like players and hosting that could benefit from that observability, like that just kind of made the most sense to start there, essentially. And so now we've solved like most of the hard problems in that space that like we need from our platform, that a lot of our customers need. Like the challenges are more like expanding feature set, like doing a better job monitoring ads and understanding when people are having really bad ad experiences and when they're seeing like the same ad like over and over and over again and things like that, like expanding the things that we can monitor around video. Some of it's like the privacy landscape, and like we do a lot to like anonymize the like streams that we're tracking and make sure that nothing is making its way into our data that like can be tied back, but still like GDPR and like hosting data like in the EU and things like that like start to become a challenge. Cool. Anything else? Awesome. Thanks for listening to me.
I also noticed the Syntax shirt over there. They use MediaChrome on their podcast player. For what it's worth.
Hey.
Cool. Thank you, Steve. What are we doing, Andre? Okay, so we just mingle. We'll probably end up like, I don't know, crawling over to some place with food and beer if you want to hang around for that and make it a really late Tuesday night. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Don't forget to join the Discord. I don't know where the QR code is, but yeah, and hopefully see you all next month. Thank you.